Kia ora koutou, Markie here on the channel formerly known as Mark the Demystifier and Retroactive Jealousy Support. So this is another video that's not about retroactive jealousy. What it is about, well, many things actually. It's a bit of a history lesson. It's a bit of engineering, a bit of art, a bit of history. Yeah, so what I've been trying to do is, so those of you that follow the channel will know that I've been starting to draw, which is a kind of new thing for me, really. And I have a bit of a fascination with castles. I think it's one of my autistic special interests. So it's a bit of a lesson on autism as well. And so I made a start. I drew, my original plan was to draw quite technical pictures of castles because I was kind of quite interested in castle design and how it actually works. But I ended up not really doing that. So I did a kind of a romantic kind of Bavarian castle, and then I did a fantasy castle, not by intention really. It's just by default really. I started drawing and that's what emerged. So I decided to get back to my original purpose of trying to draw a castle in a kind of very technical way to kind of understand better how they would have been built, and also thinking about how I would maybe want to design a castle if it was mine. What I think might be a better way of doing it, knowing full well that that it's unlikely that would be a better way of doing it, because if it was a good way of doing it, they would have done it in the Middle Ages. So here is a work in progress. So I'll give you updates as we go on this, and it's a castle wall section that I've designed. So that's a cross section, and then we've got kind of front elevation. So this is a blend of, because a bit of biography here, biography as well, is that my first full-time job when I left school was as a draftsman. And this is kind of quite amusing really, because out of all the qualifications I did at school, the lowest grade in anything that I ever got was in technical drawing. I ended up becoming a draftsman. So I got my highest qualification as I left school was an A level, for anyone that knows what A levels are, and I actually got an A grade, and that was in English literature. And the lowest qualification that I got was a CSE grade 4. CSE grade 4 were famous. The newspapers used to lampoon CSE grade 4 as, a monkey could get that, so, and that's what I ended up being my job for the first 5 years of my working life. It was a combined job. I was a draftsman and an estimator, so I was pricing things, and I later found out that I suffer with dyscalculia and numeric dyslexia. So it was the worst possible job I could have had really. But there we go. I had some good times with it. I had some bad times. Had some laughs. Probably cost that company more than I ever earned them. But it's a distant memory now. Although I still have dreams. I have dreams when I have to go back there, which is kind of quite interesting. So I want to show you what I've done, and this is where the kind of the history lesson kind of comes into it. So castle walls. So you see this on the section here, and I'm going to need a pointy stick to illustrate here. So you excuse the thumbs and things on the camera, because as you know, that's what we like on this channel. No production values in the raw. So the outer stones of the wall would be better stones. Sometimes these are known as ashlars, so they're properly shaped stones. Whereas the infill in the middle of a wall would be rough stones, rubbish stones. So this is what I've drawn to kind of illustrate the kind of the rubbish stones. So here we get the rubbish stone infill mixed with cut stones for various reasons, which I'll kind of go into as we go. So now what I think I've done, I've made this wall section quite wide. I think it's probably a lot wider than a plain wall section normally would be, because to me they always seem very narrow. I think, how do they sort of stay up by being so narrow? Whereas I think the reality is that you have you have a section of wall, and then you have towers, and it's the towers that support the walls. But what I've done is I've added a buttress. So this is a buttress here. Now I've added that on from the inside of the wall to support it, thinking that if it's going to come under any pressure, it's going to come under pressure from attack from the outside. But actually, I think in reality, I probably set this up for it to lean that way. So this is full of mistakes. This is why it's experimental archaeology, because when you actually draw something out, you get to see why things are a good idea and why they're not a good idea. So what I've done as well is on the inside of the rampart, from what I can tell, most castles didn't have a stone wall there. Often they would have a wooden fence, to stop people falling off the rampart. I think because of my fear of heights and thinking about things like frost, I'm thinking, well, I really wouldn't want to be on a narrow rampart with nothing here to protect me. And if you're gonna put a wooden fence up, why not just build it properly from the start? So that was my thought, and I thought make the buttress go right to the top to support that. Now this is another kind of throwback to my days as a draftsman and an estimator, because I was a draftsman and estimator in a roofing company. So very conscious of rainwater, and what we have so I worked in industrial roofing, which is the Wrigley tin, roofing and cladding. We used to have a thing called an eaves drip, which would kind of stop water blowing back up. So I'm thinking very much of drainage. That's why you've got this long this side of the wall, because some castle walls were just flat on top, but I'm thinking drainage. A bit boring, but I'm thinking drainage. So you've got this kickback here, so that the water kind of hopefully drips down there, doesn't kind of come back into the mortar. And we've got the same effect kind of here as well. So bear in mind, this is a cross section. So this part here, as a little idea that I had, was that maybe a buttress on this side might make that more secure, but actually it was also putting more weight on here, so I'm not sure that's a good idea, and I don't think they ever did that, or maybe they did. There's a lot of variation in castle design. So what else about this bit? What can this bit tell? Well, so often the inside of the castle wall, the ground level was raised, so that represents kind of infill with rough stone and then topsoil. So that is higher than that, which also protects makes the wall stronger, protects it from pressure and attack from that direction. Normally it was a lot higher on this side. I haven't done it as high, I don't know why really. And this represents the bedrock. So the foundations go right down to the bedrock pretty much. The bedrock level varies. You also often on the bottom of castle walls you have it splays out, and that's to displace the weight, so the weight's not all going down in one place. So what I should have done really for consistency is shown this buttress going down beneath the ground level as well. So that's an error of mine. So that's the section. This corresponds to this overhang. These are corbels. So you get in medieval architecture, you get a lot of corbels. So you see those, and in Tudor architecture and Elizabethan architecture, you see houses that the each floor extends out slightly longer into the above the street than the floor below, using corbels below, which could be wooden, normally wooden in housing, but in castles normally stone. Although medieval castles, there were many more wooden castles than people remember. They don't survive, so we don't have any real kind of record of them, because the wood rots and stone sticks around a bit longer. But there were lots of wooden castles as well, but we've got a stone castle here. What else do I need to point out here? So the purpose of these corbels is for something called a matriculation. So people argue about how that should be pronounced. Some people think it should be pronounced in the French way. So this part of the front elevation here represents a corner. Now, just to, that's the easiest way of I could just cut cut this dead, as if as if it kind of is in the middle of a section of wall and not actually show either end, like I've done on the other end. The end it just continues. But I thought I would, if I created a corner, it would be more illustrative of things. But in reality, you'd probably have a tower rather than the corner. Corner was very vulnerable in terms of medieval castles. Corners would be best place to undermine. So sappers would dig holes underneath, and then they would prop up the hole with like pit props would, and then light a fire underneath to burn away the pit props, and then the wall would hopefully according to the attackers collapse. So that was a technique that was used. So they'd be quite difficult here because this castle is actually built on bedrock, so you couldn't actually sap it anyway. So what we've got here, this part here is that. So that doesn't go along the whole. This extension, these corbels don't go along the whole length of the wall like it looks like they might. They're periodically. So that is that, and so on. So that carries the weight of the extension of the rampart over and beyond the edge of the main brickwork, the main stonework that's coming up here. So that would carry the weight. I think I've got these way too far apart because that's a lot of weight, particularly the way I've done it with all these ashlars here. That's really heavy, and then I've added these periodic buttresses, so I've made this really heavy. So I think these would want to be really occur twice as often. That one there is on a diagonal, so that it's on the corner, so that's kind of that's coming out like that. In reality, I'm not sure whether I've got that right in terms of the brickwork and it going up there. So what we've got here is the matriculation, the arch. So imagine up there is a gap, okay, which corresponds to a little hole that would be so this wall periodically there would be a cutaway into the wall back that far. So from there to about there, hang on, that'd be further. So about halfway through the wall, from there, level with that to about there, where the wall is cut away, would be a hole, and that is what a matriculation actually is holes. So there'd be a hole here, hole here, hole here, hole here, and your defender from behind this battlement could open up the hatch. Normally there was a hatch over it, and either chuck stuff down on anybody down here that's trying to attack the castle, or could actually fire arrows down there. So that's what the matriculation is. It's a hole. So whether every one of these would have a hole, whether just some would, because they're quite spaced apart, I would say probably they all would. And this is an arch, so that's adding a bit of extra support to there. So basically the arrow or the stones or whatever you want to chuck down could come from down that hole, from that direction, though, more like that angle really. So anybody that's standing at the bottom of the wall, because otherwise if you have somebody standing really close to the bottom of the wall and you just have a straight tower with no extension at this point, then there's a blind spot and you can't actually hit them with your arrow or with a missile or anything like that. This way it means that people can't get to the wall, close to the wall without being the opportunity to defend them. So this is what's known as an arrow slit or an arrow loop, and they'll be all along here at regular intervals. So that probably speaks for itself. Sometimes they were cross-shaped, often like a little upside-down cross, funnily, or sometimes they had kind of round kind of section in the middle. But the round sections usually were for rudimentary firearms when they came in, so they're a little bit later, the round ones, but not always. Battlements, like I say, don't always have a roof, but I kind of created this little roof so that the rain drips off. So this is what's known as a Merlon, the high bit. That is a crenelle, which is the low bit of a battlement. Easy way to remember it, if you think of Merlin standing up like a man, and a crenelle like crevasse. So Merlon and crenelle. So a bit of specific terminology here. Matriculation, which is the hole. Corbel, which is the extended stonework that allows the wall to be projected outwards at the top. Buttress, well, that's not really a technical castly term, but see, and I don't know, I've made that buttress so that it links in with the wall at the top, but it's separate at the bottom, so you get that lean, which would allow extra pressure, which I think is a bad idea on retrospect, because I think, you know, it's going to be a leaning tower, it's going to go. So some of the technical terms. Also, I'm thinking about drainage, because I'm boring and pedantic like that. So what I've thought is that, you know, actually on here you want a slight slope, so that rain that gathers in here, so otherwise it could just build up, couldn't it? So I thought a slight slope, and I've kind of assumed that you might actually use gravel as well. You'd have some kind of pretty brickwork to raise it, and then a little bit of gravel as well, which would be good for, again, minimising ice in winter. You don't want your defenders sliding around, so that actually rainwater actually drains out of the matriculation hole. So when I draw this properly and shade it in, there'll be all kind of that area will be stained where the rainwater's continually pouring out of it, and also the defenders would probably use that as a convenience. Now, I didn't put an arch here. I was going to assume that actually that was bricked in or blocked in above, but actually I think I will put a smaller arch there. It'll come down to the same level, but be sharper. The other thing that I've done, which is kind of experimental on my part, I don't know that it really was done. It was done with arrow loops, but I don't think it was done with battlements. Is because you see there's no you can't see the return there, and then you've got this area here. Is what I have, and this will come out in one of the later drawings because I'm going to do some other sections and views and things. Is that so this is just a view above the battlements. So that's the Merlon, that's the crenelle. That's the Merlon, that's the crenelle. By the way, I made these too wide as well. You don't need all that space there. You just need enough space for defender to pop out. You want that as small as possible, really, just enough so that he can fire his arrow, his bow or his crossbow out of there, and then duck behind the shelter. So one defender there, you have one defender, and also if somebody's scaling the wall with ladders, you've got a place where you can do your hand-to-hand combat. You don't want this too big because it's a vulnerability, so I've made that too. That's another. It's full of errors and experiments. So what I envisaged is, again, so this is looking on section, is that I made that too. Bear with me. You need a rubber. Just imagine that's wider than it actually is. So so that this goes back like that. It's actually that shape. Because then your defender here can, it looks like he's wearing a Mexican hat, can get maximum protection by a small gap here, but maximum visibility and firing range by having this wider opening around here. That's my thinking. And also, by the same token, and again, looking from a different angle, how am I going to do this? So, right, so this is a view looking that way, or that way. So you've got the got the top of the battlement there, and then normally the battlement would be the place where the top of the crenelle is. So that would be this section here. So that's straight line, isn't it? But I thought actually what would be better is you make that an angle, so the bowman can actually be protected again, but aim down still with the protection. So there we go. So it's interesting. Obviously, drawing something's not the same as making it, but it does make you think. And I've been watching and studying loads of stuff about castle design, but it doesn't tell you everything. It raises more kind of questions. So if I was going to start again from scratch, I would do this quite differently. I don't think I would have these buttresses. I think I would still have the design on the top of the rampart walls. That's on top of the Merlon. That's on top of a wall to stop people falling into the bailey, which is the inside part of the castle. I don't think I would do the buttress like this. I'd probably make the wall narrower and just rely on towers, because it does seem incredibly wide. That's a lot of stone. And here as well, there seems to be a lot of ashlars. And ashlars are expensive, they require lots of work from your masons. I think I still like the idea of having this angle on both planes around the battlements. I think that's a good idea. I would make that gap much narrower, probably about that wide, I think, would be the actual crenelle. And then obviously you'd have a lot more of them. I would have at least double the corbelling, the sections of corbelling, to support the weight of the overlap. I wouldn't have this projecting as far out, because that's a weakness to an attacker. They can angle a ladder on there or kind of get a grip on there when they're ascending the wall. That would be a bit of a gift to the attacker. So there you go. I think that's all I need to say about this one. I will obviously it's not complete. I'm still kind of doing so I'm drawing in the kind of the technical bits first. It's a weird combination of kind of like an engineering drawing and a piece of art, really. And I probably made a mess of both. I've offended both engineers and artists in one go, and historians and experimental archaeologists. Maybe not biographers. But yeah, so I'm quite pleased with the look of it. I think it looks quite cool aesthetically. So when people draw castles or try and replicate castles, they normally have merlons and crenelles the same width. So you get this. This is the kind of the classic kind of castle wall kind of thing. Also, they make them way too small, and normally they have them with people's heads poking up like that above them. That would be useless. The whole idea is this is bigger, taller than a defender, so it completely protects them. The other thing as well is on a corner, if you don't have a tower, you might have some kind of different design, or you might have a turret, because this corner, this angle here, is a blind spot. You might have half a matriculation on each side of these corbels, so you can look down, but you can't look out. So you might actually have another arrow loop here on the corner, or you might have a turret. Now, a turret is, people confuse turrets and towers. That's a tower is something that's freestanding and comes up from the ground. A turret is a little tower that's tapped onto a wall or to another tower. So a turret would, again, you'd have kind of corbels supporting it because it juts out. Would look something like that. So you could, with a turret, you could have an arrow loop or a window that's looking out exactly on the corner, and somebody would step into this. It would also provide a bit of shelter for the defenders. So in retrospect, I think I probably would have put a turret there if I didn't put a tower on the corner. So we'll do that in subsequent drawings. So if you are a historian or an engineer or somebody who knows a bit about castle design or knows a bit about general design, tell me what you think. Be polite, because I'm not an engineer. I'm terrible at engineering. You know, that first job that I did, I was a nightmare. I don't know how I ever got into that. I do not have an engineering brain, which is why I kind of wanted to kind of draw all this stuff out just to understand it better and how it works. Because the other problem I've got as well is living in New Zealand, Aotearoa, I can't access any castles to actually look at the real thing. So I've been looking at loads of pictures, but that doesn't quite do it. So so this is actually this is a project that doesn't play to my skills at all. It plays to all my kind of weaknesses, really. So if you're an engineer or historian or somebody that knows a bit about castles, and you've got any suggestions or comments or thoughts about how things might look, like this bit here, I don't think I've drawn that right somehow. Please let me know, but be polite, be nice, because, I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm having a lot of fun with it, and I'm learning along the way, but I really don't know. And it's a long, long time since I was a draftsman, so I've forgotten most things from that period of my life. And it's kind of weird as well to mix kind of like arty kind of stuff with engineering, technical drawing, because they're two very different things in lots of ways. So for example, engineering drawing is all about lines. You have lines everywhere, and you leave you often leave in the lines that you've drawn just to guide you. You often leave those in after you've finished the drawing. I'm not overly happy with how I've represented this infill stone. It would have been mortared, I think, but it's like crappy stone, whereas nice shaped stone would go around the outside. And you see in some castles, Old Sarum near Salisbury is a good example of this, where you see the remains of walls, and they just look like they're it's like pebble dash with big stones. So around there you've got those round kind of stones that you get them from Salisbury, and further south all along the kind of south coast you get these sort of stones used a lot for walls. They're round stones, and they've used those as the infill. And this stuff has disappeared. I say disappeared, people used to nick it. So where you have a ruined castle, the nice bits of stone all go to people's houses and other constructions and castles and whatever, barns or whatever. People nick all that stuff, but they don't tend to nick the rough stuff. So the rough stuff sort of survives. So Old Sarum, the remains of the walls look like that, and it used to puzzle me really, because it looks a bit rough. It doesn't look very kind of castle-like. But that infill stuff is all that remains in Old Sarum on the walls, and it's still kind of bonded to. Well, obviously, it's been remortared over the years and repaired and redone. But that's why some old castles look like that. They look rough as old Nick. Now, what am I going to do on the front of here? Am I going to put am I going to draw nice neat little bricks and stones like Lego all across there? No, because this is supposed to depict a castle fairly soon after its construction, while it's sort of in use, contemporary with its makers. Often castles were lime washed around the front, so they were gleaming white. So that's what I'm going to do with this, gleaming white on here. So you've only got the exposed stone on the corners and stuff like that. Now, one of the advantages of lime washing walls of a castle, particularly if you have a wooden castle, you don't necessarily want people to know that you've got wooden walls. So if you lime wash the walls of a wooden castle white, people who aren't familiar with the construction might actually believe that it's stone and not wood, which gives you a psychological advantage and also a material advantage in that they're probably going to make less effort in trying to burn down the walls. They won't think of burning down the walls if they think they're made of stone when they're actually made of wood. So that was one of the things. Well, I believe, I'm not sure, but I believe churches were also kind of rendered or lime washed as well. So So when we see these, we love, they look great, these, foreboding stone walled castles, but actually, they were white. I think that's why the White Tower in the Tower of London is so named, because it would have been rendered white. Tell me if I'm wrong, if you're a historian. So yeah, let's have your feedback, as long as it's polite. Be kind to me, because I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just kind of playing and trying to learn. And I'll keep you up to speed on how I get along, and I'll show you. Hopefully we'll make this look pretty at the end as well. And I want to do a couple more elevations. So I want to do a plan. So a plan, in other words, is looking down. So it'll look down on be looking down there. It'll be looking behind there. So basically, you'll see the plan will look like that, but it will show you how often I decide to put those buttresses in, even though I probably shouldn't have put that in. It looks nice though. I quite like the look of it. And also it'll show you where the walls come in there, and we'll try and cut away to an arrow loop as well, because the walls go in like that for an arrow loop. There's a little alcove behind the arrow loop like that, so we'll try and depict all of that. And I want to do another view as well, so I might do a rear view as well, so you can get a sense of how often these buttresses. So rear view will look like that. That will be the retaining wall to stop people falling off. That'll be that, and then I'll show you how often I decide to put these buttresses there. Probably not too often, actually, seeing as they're a silly idea. So this will all be tidied up, and we'll hopefully look a little bit nicer, with some additional views. What I had hoped was actually to include a tower at the very beginning, but I haven't. So what I'll probably do after I've finished this with maybe the 3 views on it, 3 elevations, is do another version of this with much narrower here. We'll lose that. We'll lose this buttress. I'll probably put the earth higher there, because it'd probably be sloped as well. And then behind it in section we'll put the tower, and the door to the tower will be kind of there, and the outside of the tower will be kind of there, and we'll show you the tower, and then we'll do 3 sections or 3 elevations of that with the tower as well, or maybe I might even do a turret. That might be fun. So more to come. I enjoy it anyway, if nobody else does. Thanks for bearing with me on this wild ramble of history, engineering, history, engineering, art, biography, and autism. Thank you for bearing with me. I will see you in the next one. Rangimarie.